I always like to think of sex as the adult playground, identifying with your partner. For her specifically, what turns her on? That in and of itself is an arousing experience. Would you be open to exploring it more with me? Because I want to get better at it. I want to step into a different place, and I would love to do that with you.
Because it's when we are connected that the play can start. Otherwise, we're not playing. Yeah, or we're playing separate
Yes.
games.
There's such a seriousness that can come into the bedroom. Funny things happen in the bedroom. And if we can't laugh about it sometimes, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice and missing out on what could be a really beautiful connecting moment.
Welcome back, Kirsten. I have invited Kirsten Trammell, sex and relationship coach, to talk about empowering men to become great lovers. In Wisdom Bomb number 1, we discussed how men too often and unintentionally turn women off. Today, we are going to talk about how to turn women on.
Yes, this is such a beautiful question. And I think to kick it off, the first thing that I would say is that every woman is going to be different, just like every man is going to have different desires of what turns him on and what gets him excited. And so the first thing that I would say to do is really start to understand the woman that you are with and the woman that you are being sexual with, and identifying what does she really get turned on by. There's different blueprints and different erotic intelligence, and some people are going to be more aroused by a romantic experience. Some are more aroused by the idea of like a psychologically kinky experience, some energetic. And then there are some that are really physical in nature in terms of like the actual physical experience of sex. And so identifying not only for yourself what turns you on, but for your woman, where is she living on this spectrum really of possibilities of arousal within the world of sex? And I think that that can be done ultimately through having conversations, through trial and error, through testing things out, through experimenting and identifying with your partner for her specifically what turns her on. Because I think that if you just place a blanket statement on this is what's going to turn all women on, you're probably going to miss something, and there's a uniqueness in every person. And so taking the time to be intentional about identifying what is it that really turns your woman, your girl on, that in and of itself is an arousing experience.
So I love that big picture look at how her turn on blueprint is
Mhm.
and honoring it so that she feels seen and known and felt through it.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, most people really desire to be seen and known. And in a romantic and a sexual relationship, that is one of the most beautiful places and the most kind of precious places to have that experience.
Because it's when we are connected that the play can start. Otherwise, we're not playing. Yeah, or we're playing separate
Yes.
games.
Yes. Yeah, I always like to think of sex as the adult playground of our lives. And so, yeah, it's interesting that you say that we're playing different games, and at the end of the day, how can we either bring those two games together to make something new and different that we both enjoy, or how can we take turns playing each other's games, or seeing what's possible? I think so often we put things into this yes or no black and white space, and this the sexual landscape of our lives really gets to be an area to kind of remove some of that and see what's actually possible.
I love it because what I'm seeing from what you're saying is you are portraying a man who is confident, who is
Mm.
leading his woman, who knows and has found ways to basically turn her on and knows her turns ons, knows how to be with her from a place of empowerment, from a place of strength versus from a place of, will she like what I'm doing? I need to ask for permission. I'll likely get a no again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, confidence is such an interesting kind of trait, and being able to bring that into a sexual space is really important. I think it goes both ways. Even if you were to consider if a woman stepped into a space with really no confidence in herself or in her, yeah, just in her way of being, that that wouldn't be a turn on for a man either. So for everybody, confidence, and I like to think of it as just being really comfortable with who you are and how powerful that can be, because I think the more comfortable we become in ourselves, the more confident we kind of exude, more confidence we exude.
So confidence is paramount for both. I agree.
Mhm.
Could no, so no one I know is fully confident. You know, everyone has areas of their life they don't, and many
Mhm.
of us have, you know, sexual hangovers, you know, bad stories, or, you know, same old for too long, and, you know, we're good roommates, but only with some benefits, and there is a lack of confidence and, you know, body image and all those things. And so could we start the conversation by saying we want to become more confident? Can we set some practices
Mhm.
through playing sexually with each other?
Definitely. Yes. I often like to say the phrase name it to tame it. And really what that ultimately means is that when you voice something, that you really enable it to become less of a big deal. So this could look like saying, "Hey, I'm unsure about what this would be like, and I'm a little uncomfortable asking to explore this, but would you be interested in trying on XYZ and kink?" Or maybe even ultimately saying, "Hey, I'm actually feeling like not so confident in this part of our sex life. Would you be open to exploring it more with me? Because I want to get better at it. I want to step into a different place and I would love to do that with you." So, by actually voicing what's true, that in and of itself is going to create a sense of confidence and a sense of just shared connection in the experience, which ultimately creates better sex and intimacy in the long run.
I love it because both men and women have self-confidence issues. They are different, but they are somehow similar that we have them.
Mm,
And so learning to put them on the table, learning to know better what, you know, our partner feels in shame with, and be able to become more curious and playful and okay with it is a wonderful way to tell our partner, hey, I see you, I
mm,
feel you, I'm with you. And, you know, sex is, of course, some wonderful moments, but also some moments that are not so wonderful. Let's just be with them as we play with each other.
mhm. Yeah, and I think to that there's such a seriousness that can come into the bedroom, and I think that if we were to forget about the playfulness and the awkwardness and the silliness that can come up, that we're missing out on really, really important components of sex. I studied from a tantric lens, and one of the pieces of that is looking at bringing all of oneself into a sexual experience, and that includes the sadness, the anger, the awkwardness, the silliness, and inviting all of that in. And I think that, funny things happen in the bedroom. And if we can't laugh about it sometimes, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice and missing out on what could be a really beautiful connecting moment in the long run.
So we're coming back to confidence because if we cannot laugh about it, it's likely that we don't feel safe enough to do that in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Very true. Yeah.
If you cannot wait for part 3 of this wonderful conversation with Kirsten Trammell, please hit the like button below, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can be notified when I publish new juicy content. Here is the link to part 1 of our conversation. Here is a link to a video that Kirsten made to help men be more successful in the bedroom. And here are 2 videos I made to help men better understand women. Enjoy.